So I'm going to start.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. Today with me, I have Aditya Jaykumar. Am I pronouncing that right, Aditya?
Perfect. Yes, that's a perfect pronunciation.
Wonderful. So Aditya is going to tell us a little bit about himself, and he's going to tell us, give us a background of what he has done in his past. But before we do that, let's just talk about Aditya a little bit personally. So tell us a little bit about you, Aditya. Tell us about where you were born, where you grew up.
So I was I'm from India, born in Mumbai, grew up in Mumbai, and, loved it there deep down all throughout my life. I've had, many spiritual experiences. So I've always felt connected to nature and spirit. And, somewhere deep down, I always knew that, my career would align with healing and helping people reduce stress and align with their true visions in life. But yeah, so I was born in Mumbai, and I used to have these yoga classes in school. That's where I first came across yoga. It was compulsory as part of school. But I used to really enjoy the shavasana, which is the last part where you really relax your entire body
Mm.
and take your awareness to different parts of your being. And that sort of it was one of my epiphanies about how is this possible, right? And if this is possible, what else is possible?
Right,
And so all throughout my childhood, I had these very mystical moments that reminded me of what I should do in my life.
right.
Um, yeah.
So Aditya, when you say, you had a very mystical moment when you were doing yoga, like everyone around the world does yoga, right?
Mm, mm.
Um, what happened in that experience in your yoga that made it so mystical for you? What did you experience?
Yeah, I mean, so it was not mystical in the sense of outwardly. I did not have an out of body experience per se. But just as the yoga teacher was guiding us through visualizing our awareness in different parts of the body, like, for example, the legs, the heels, the thighs, it was just that realization that our imagination or our consciousness is so powerful that if you think about it, if you think about our toes, whoa, we're already at our toes. If you
Right,
think about the heart, we're already at our heart. And
right.
as somebody who was in, like, I think third grade, somebody who was getting to know the world, just that realization that this is possible,
Mhm.
that had like a big aha moment for me. So it was not out of the body experience,
Yes.
but it was like an aha moment,
Well, sometimes aha moments are very simple, right? They don't need to be outer body.
Exactly.
And maybe the more simple
Exactly.
they are, the more profound they are, because um,
Mm.
it's within simplicity that God lies, right?
Very true. Something I did not mention yet
Yeah.
is, in my household, my dad is a Hindu and my mom is a Christian.
Okay.
So my dad is from Tamil Nadu and my mom is from Mangalore, which meant that, growing up, I was exposed to both, philosophies and
Yeah.
ways of life. So I used to go to church sometimes and I used to go to the temple sometimes. And I think deep down that sort of laid the seeds for me to be more open-minded
Mhm.
and wanting to learn more about how the universe operates and works, because I read the Bible and I did read about Rama and Krishna and Ganesha and that side of the story.
Right. It's so amazing because when you read about the Brahma and Krishna, and it's everything is so expansive. It's so opening. There's so much there. It's so vast. It's so intense.
Yep.
Where
Yep.
when you read about Christianity or you study the Bible, it's more about what happened here on the face of the planet, what happened with Christ. Whereas in when you're talking about Krishna and Ram, sure, it's also about what happened with them, but it's also about what
Yep.
happened on the other loks, right? In the other.
Very true. It's so very true that you pointed that out because I, as a child, I had this realization also. So my mom used to take me to the church, and we used to go to the church, and I used to see Jesus on the cross.
Right.
And I knew the story. And I knew that, well, that's not the end. He does rise
Yeah.
after that, but why are they focusing on this? And why are they calling us sinners? I'm not a sinner, right? So I had those realizations because I felt bad when somebody called me a sinner, just knowing deep down that we're abundant, we're, we're innocent, we're free.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. And also, I love that you spoke about Brahma, Krishna. And the beauty is that our ancient yogis, our elders, used to talk in terms of stories, but also metaphors.
Yes.
And so, if you just look at the mantra Om, and if you divide it into three parts, A, U,
Ooh,
Ma, that sort of encapsulates all of life,
yeah.
where you say A is the creator,
Yeah.
Brahma,
Yeah.
U is like the preserver, Vishnu, and is Shivam, which is the consciousness. And so it's beautiful how you connect the deities and the stories with a mantra like Om, and sort of that helps you understand
Yeah.
life as a whole as well. So,
Well, and I used to do that mantra, and I used to break it down in my body too, and the
yeah,
stomach, the throat, and then the third eye, and
yeah.
I used to do it in the mornings. And as I was doing it, it would be like so profound to me that what's so vast and expansive is right here in my body too, right? And as I'm breathing it, you
Yeah,
know you're thinking of the gods as you're breathing it. You're meditating on the names of the gods, and those energy
yeah,
and the power and the beauty that they hold when you're meditating with that one
yeah.
word.
Yes, so true. Yeah, it's so fascinating that, like, growing up, I wasn't exposed too much to the Indian side of things in terms of the spiritual significance and the metaphysical significance of these mantras.
Mhm.
Maybe that should be done more in India, because I think a lot of India right now, especially the young generation, is more, fantasizes Western culture, but they don't know the gift that resides in
Right
India
there.
itself.
Yeah.
Right in their home, exactly. Well, whereas the people in the West love Ayurveda and yoga and Vedanta and Tantra. And I think the Indians need to look back and say, whoa, we've got a gift within ourselves, and we need to now learn more about it so that we can share with the
Yes.
rest of the world.
The
Yeah,
rest of
so
the,
that's fascinating.
for the rest of the world, it's just something that they're curious about, but they know inside
Yeah,
that it's something they want to know about. For
yeah,
for India and the Eastern world, it's right there. They can just grab it and
it's
look.
right there.
It's right there for them at their grasp, and they're going outside. And so how
That's so true.
okay, so we talked about
That's very true.
growing up, and we talked a little bit about the two philosophy that you grew up with. Tell us a little bit now about um, your experiences with metaphysics and with spirituality, because I mean now you talk about healing, and you talk about breathing, and you talk about, you don't only just talk about it, you even teach it. So how did we go from curiosity about these things to actually
Mm,
teaching it?
mm. Yeah, that's a very fascinating story. And I think the journey never ends of learning, right? It's
Right.
like they say that the best way of learning is to teaching, is because when you teach, it helps articulate some of the concepts and stories and ideas in your mind. And you're like, oh, now that I explain it, I understand it better. So for me, it began, I think one of the pivotal moments was back in India when I was doing a retail sales job, and I was working odd hours, working on weekends, eating at odd hours, and I was experiencing a lot of stress because some of the employees were not very, empowering and supportive. And so I was really looking for a way to de-stress myself, calm my mind, and just relax, as a lot of people listening right now might be able to relate, because we are in this crazy pandemic and it's not easy. So I was in that stage where I was really looking for something, and I tried meditation, but it didn't come naturally to me, just to be silent and contemplate. It's not very easy, especially when
Right.
getting started. So I went on YouTube, and I came across this chakra visualization video, and I said, why not give it a try? And so I lay down, I did the visualization, and I visualized myself at each chakra, and I felt a shift. I felt such a difference like I never knew before. And I knew deep down that there's so much more to it. And so then I did some more work, and I did the whole energy ball, activated my subtle senses. And that got me so curious. And right about that time, I was listening to podcasts as well, and podcasts and business and finance. And I thought to myself, if given an opportunity to start a podcast, I would definitely jump at it, but I would start something in the spiritual healing realm so that I can reach out to people who've spent decades in these topics and just ask them questions. And so it was that curiosity that made me start the podcast and then learn more about the mind and energy and the universe and how it operates. And so slowly but surely, I was going down the route of wanting to teach this at some point in the future. And I came across people like Dan Brule, who's like the personal breathwork coach to Anthony Robbins.
Right.
And these were experiences were like seeds, because sometimes somebody does not have to tell you a word, but just their being communicates something to you.
Hmm.
So he was sharing his stories in his interviews, but he used to breathe like, and it was back in those days. I didn't do video; it's just audio. So I'm just hearing his voice, and I'm sensing him breathing like, and his breathing was so conscious, and it was like so fascinating. And wanted to learn more, because the thing is, we can all go about talk about astral projection and spirituality and tantra, but something that's very accessible and ready to us is the breath. We can all breathe. And the beauty is, by just learning how to breathe correctly, we can influence our physiology, reduce stress, and feel much better. And that opens the gateway to learning more about these other subtle sciences that are available to us. So that's why I was like, this is a huge opportunity. Let me share it with our audience. Let's see how the response is. And people are really, really enjoying these breathing sessions that we have on Zoom.
Right. And so you do breathing sessions on Zoom, and we're going to get you to do a breathing session, inshallah, for our audience as well.
100%. Yeah.
And so you talked about your podcast. Now, you basically started the podcast for the sake of learning, not for teaching. Is that my
Mm,
understanding? And then from learning, you became teacher.
yeah.
And
The
so,
thing is, you know what? A lot of people were telling me, AJ, you've got such a good platform. Because initially, I wanted to just do like about 60 episodes, right? Like,
right,
who knows, right? Whether your podcast is going to scale or not.
right.
You can't predict these things.
No,
I went out of curiosity, wanting to learn, wanting to reach out, and also somewhere down the line, wanting to share this information with people, right?
right,
Because I have a genuine wanting to be able to provide this information, because everyone deserves to know that they are not just physical body, they are energy.
right.
And so that was my wanting. I did not have a long-term plan to
Oh,
set up like a spiritual business or teach or share. This just happened. It just opened up as life happens, right? You don't see the whole path.
no,
It's all foggy and misty. You just see the next few steps, and then when the opportunity comes, you say, let's do it and see how it can support and add value to people's lives.
right. And so, like, when you say 60 episodes, that's a lot of episodes. So, how did you come up with the plan of what the content will be in each of those episodes?
Right. That's a great question. I went by my intuition, um,
Excellent.
in terms of some other topics that I am interested in personally, like chakras and lucid dreaming and meditation. In Vancouver, one idea I also had in terms of topics, I went to the bookshop. I went to Indigo Bookshop, and I went to the alternative health section. I was like, what are people reading? What is a book that's closest to me? Like, what are they displaying? That was sort of the marketing mind, or the MBA guy at the back of my head, because I did an MBA at UBC, and I was like, what's being promoted here, and what am I interested? So I always think in terms of three things. One is, what am I interested? Second is, what are people interested in? And third is, I also think about what is the guest interested in talking. Because if I ask the question, the guest is not really interested. Maybe it's something they did like 10 years back, but they don't really feel it. Then it's going to reflect in the interview, right? It's there's going to be like a disconnection. So I always try to see, what is that listener going to be super excited about? What am I excited about based on where I am on my journey? And what is the guest who, what will he or she really resonate with? If we're able to match all of this, it is like electricity. People enjoy the conversations.
Right. And so, and
So
so
that's how.
each podcast was planned in the moment for that podcast. It wasn't a pre-plan. Is that right?
So usually I tend to batch my episodes. So especially when I started, I didn't start with one episode. I had 3 episodes, just so that if somebody's new to my podcast, they listen to one episode, they at least have 2 other episodes to listen to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, to your point, I didn't have like a whole content structure, like a content plan for 6 months, like a lot of these marketing companies recommend. I just went with the flow
Right.
and said, who is that person who is going to enter into my life in a mystical way, or I might just read about them,
Right.
right? So an example that I can share with you is, at one point I was subscribing to Gaia, and I was like, let me see what's available, right? And so I went to George Nuri's,
Yeah.
interview. And
Yeah.
then I saw somebody called Lawrence Cielo who was talking about astral projections. And I was like, that's fascinating. What if I just reach out to her, actually him, because he was in transition at that point. So reach out to him, and he replied. Lauren replied, and we set up and we had a conversation. And it's so fascinating that this beautiful platform that if I reach out to, I see somebody on TV, see somebody in the radio, I reach out to them, and more often than not, they want to jump, they want to chat, they
Absolutely.
want to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah. Most people who are heart centered and not corporate centered, if I may say, will
Yeah,
absolutely be willing to make a connection with you, right? And be able to,
very true.
and happy to have a conversation with you because they're interested in the sharing of things as well, you know, and
Exactly.
we all learn from each other, and the people that come into our lives are always gifts, right? So
Very true.
if you have that mindset and if you recognize that, then everyone who comes into your life is a gift and you will benefit from it while they're benefiting from it.
That's so true. And sometimes it happens a lot. It's like when I need that piece of information, for some reason, I get it from the guest, and it happens with my listeners as well. It's like they want, they're seeking answers to something, and it just happens to be on that next episode. And to your point, I try to find guests who I would really resonate with, who I want to be friends with. They need not be like New York Times bestsellers, but
Yes.
as long as what their work is really authentic and really adds value to the audience and they have a beautiful story, I'll bring them on my show.
That's wonderful. So I wanted to ask you then, who else did you approach? Like, who did you approach, and what was the response?
Yeah, so I just like you said, I reached out to people. I think one of the highlights earlier on was when I reached out to Mark Allen,
Yes.
who is the founder of New World Library Publishing. And he said yes. People who are, like you said, who are in this space, who generally want to share, will come on your show. So I reached out to him, and because of that, I also got connected with other people, other authors
Hmm.
that are part of his publishing company, which was beautiful, because then they sent me books, and I had so many books in my house. And he was pivotal because he introduced me to a new mindset of success. You see, growing up, and I think a lot of your listeners might be able to resonate, we are encouraged to believe that we need to hustle, hustle, hustle. We got to work like 16 hours, 18 hours, and really work hard. Only then we'll see success.
Right.
Whereas Mark Allen introduced me to the concept of how powerful our imagination is, and the power of our visualization, because he co-wrote a book and worked a lot with Shakti Gawain,
Hmm.
who author of Creative Visualization.
Way to visualize.
And he introduced me to the concept of being lazy, but still being able to be a millionaire. And I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. you know, he's like, no, I was lazy. But he said that you can be lazy, you can design your lifestyle as long as you give your mind or your subconscious mind the right intentions and you feel it and you use the right emotions and you amplify those emotions, and then the subconscious mind will automatically replicate it. It might not happen immediately because the subconscious mind is, sometimes like your wife. you
Too.
can't you can't hurry her too much. It takes its own time, but then
Some
it unfolds.
too, right?
Yeah, exactly. It takes its own time, its own divine timing. But as long as you're in touch with your subconscious mind, and you're sending it positive impressions about the life that you want to create,
Hmm.
it's going to manifest. And
Right,
that's sort of really struck with me.
right. Wow. So, okay, you only mentioned one. I'm trying to get a list of people. So tell me who else you invited.
uh, let me think who else I invited. The other person that really resonated with me was Daniel Mitchell, um, who I reached out to, and again he, came on my show, and he introduced me to another amazing concept, which is the power of our heart and the power of imagery, where he used to guide his audiences through a meditation from our conscious awareness over somewhere here into the heart. And I still remember, just by some luck. So I love qigong, but I also love falun gong.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you've heard of Falun Gong, Falun Dafa, but they've got this beautiful practice that helps with self-healing.
Yeah.
And through some lottery or some lucky draw, I won a ticket to their live performance, right?
Oh, nice.
And I never win lucky draws, but I did win that lucky draw, and it was like a beautiful cultural musical display. And I used Daniel Mitchell's meditation technique, which was going to the center of the heart and then enjoying life. And I did that. And when they started performing, it was like a multi-sensory experience. The sound was different. It felt like it was hitting me in waves, like when you're sitting at the beach and the waves come toward you. The colors were like all the way different.
Brent.
And that, the other experience was like, if you live in your heart, life is going to be much different, multi-sensory, and there's really a lot of power. So he was pivotal. Then another guest that was really uh, very helpful in my evolution, spiritual evolution, was Richard Gordon, founder of Quantum Touch. So I interviewed him, and
Wow.
he introduced me to the concept of, how you can heal, how you can create spontaneous healing in people's bodies and auras, just through the power of the heart, power of the intention. And it's very empirical. So he's all about, wanting to see evidence, right? Evidence-based healing. And I did his course. I did level 1, I did level 2, and I tried it out on friends and family, and they were like, sometimes they would say, I got a chest pain. I was like, can I try this out on you? And then within a few minutes, they would be like, wait, what did you do? What magic is this?
Right.
And so, yeah, so he was, really pivotal. I've interviewed Marianne Williamson as well, who I note
Wow.
in one of your photos. You've met her.
Yes.
She was really, it was a great interview,
He's a lovely.
which we talked about. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's a lovely person for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all these guests from time to time have really made an impact and a positive dent in my life that has helped me, really take those next steps towards evolution.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful. So you mentioned Daniel and you mentioned
Hmm.
going into the heart space. Now, when you say going from your thinking mind to your heart, you say that you
Hmm.
understand that. I say that I understand that.
Hmm.
But what about everyone else out there?
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean even?
Yeah. That's such a fascinating question, right? I mean, I think some things are beyond logical comprehension, and you can just understand through experience. And the way that I encourage everyone to try this out is, for a couple of seconds, just imagine that your awareness is somewhere in your mind, maybe in your third eye region, and then imagine there is a ladder that is connecting your third eye to the center of your heart, and you're gently walking down the ladder, down your nose, down your throat, into the heart, and you're outside the door of your heart, and you open the door of your heart, you step one foot in, step the second foot in, and you close the door. So important thing is to close the door. Now you're at the center of your heart, and visualize the energy that is emanating in your heart, in the chamber of your heart. It's a very sacred and special place, and sometimes people might get that feeling of timelessness, of being eternal. And then you can also imagine that your heart is like a spaceship, and now your spaceship is in a beautiful green meadow. There's a huge ancient tree beside you, and white mountains in the distance. Now, when you are in the center of your heart, whatever intention you have, whatever healing you want to send, um, it's it's like 10 times or even 100 times compared to when you're doing it in your conscious mind. Because when you're in your conscious mind, we have all these limitations, we have all these trauma, we've got this belief system of what is possible or not for us. But somehow when you go into the center of your heart, all of those inhibitions come off and you feel really liberated. So completely understand it might not be very logical, or I might not be using the right words to explain it, but the best way to do this is to, like explained, go literally down the ladder to the center of your heart, be in silent contemplation, and just feel how it is. And after that, maybe you can do some journaling about what it felt like. And the more you do it, the more you really have like a felt experience of what it is to be at the center of your mystical, beautiful, sacred heart.
So I'm going to ask a simple question. When somebody is experiencing their heart, when you say imagine, somebody might visualize a red heart, to the
Yeah,
left, or
yeah.
their beating heart to their left, or
Mm,
somebody,
mm.
who's a little more might imagine a chakra wheel in their center. Does any of that matter?
Right. That's a wonderful question as well. Now, when I say heart, I'm referring to the spiritual heart and not the organ of the heart. And to me, like, we're all up to interpretation. I don't have all the wisdom with me. But to me, the heart is at the center. It's right at the center. You could imagine it as a chakra. You can imagine it as a red chamber. You can imagine it as a spaceship. You can imagine it whatever you want, because the imagination is creative and you're right in your own sense. The thing about quantum science is the subject, the observer affects the experiment. So you can, introduce your own creative visualization and take it wherever you will. The ultimate thing is how you feel when you enter that zone. Do you feel calm? Do you feel like you love yourself? Do you feel like, you don't have any worries? That means you've reached the place.
Right. Huh.
Mhm.
So it's more about the feeling than where you are, even, right?
Exactly. I mean, one of my favorite authors is Neville Goddard.
Yes.
And when it comes to law of attraction, you might have heard
Yes.
about him, but when it comes to law of attraction, he was like the OG. He was like the original person who started this all. And he wrote a book called Feeling is the Secret.
Yeah.
And the book's title is Feeling is Secret. Sometimes you don't need to read the entire book. You get to know the essence of the book just through
Just
the
from the,
title. Eh,
yeah.
just to the title, right? Feeling, emotions. And that's why I think the breathwork sessions are so powerful, is because when you really amplify your feelings, amplify your gratitude, amplify your joy, bliss states, and then you seed that intention, it's much more effective rather than trying to use affirmations or trying to visualize in your normal state of mind, where your brain is in beta.
So um, there's, let's go back to the breathing. So there's
Yeah,
different types of breathing, right? There's
yeah,
forms of breathing. Different breathing instructors will tell you different forms of breathing, one, two,
yeah,
three, four, or uh,
right,
in and out and pause, or all these different breathing techniques out there. So
yeah,
how does one
yeah.
decide which one is the one for them, and or does it even
Hmm.
matter? And
Right.
how does meditation play a part in this?
Right. Great question. Definitely, there are different types and styles of breathing. And if you don't mind, I could take a couple of steps back to sort of explain the background about why we're doing the breathing in the first place.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, if you look at the yogis, right, we hear about all these stories where the yogis are able to live till 120, 130 years. And we hear stories about how these yogis, they not only lived so long, but they were very vital. They were always laughing. They were full of energy.
Right.
And then the question is like, how these yogis enjoying such a life? Is it just myth, or is there some truth to that? And the truth is that the yogas give us like a blueprint about how to not only live longer, but also how to have that vitality on an everyday basis. And the key to that is something called intermittent, in fact, brief intermittent hypoxia. So in 1930s or something, the Russian scientists discovered that when you reduce the level of dissolved oxygen in your blood and for a short period of time increase the level of carbon dioxide, it does wonders for the body. Basically, what it does is it allows the stem cells in your body to really roam about and do their work, which is the healing work. The stem cells, if your audience knows, is very unique in the sense that the stem cells in your body can convert into any cell. It can convert into hair cells, nail cells, organ cells, and things like that. So they found when you reduce the level of oxygen, the stem cells can proliferate and do the healing work, thereby helping you live longer. So this is Russian scientists. They used to take these athletes up in the helicopter, very high at high altitudes, because there was less oxygen, and they developed these very expensive equipment to put onto the mask and reduce the level of oxygen. But we realized that the yogis, just through breathing, they were able to help you reduce the level of oxygen, increase carbon dioxide, thereby influencing your physiology in a beautiful way, right? And so one core component of the breath work is the breath holds, where you hold your breath on the out breath for a given period of time. It could be 30 seconds, 45 seconds, thereby starting what is called intermittent hypoxia in your body, so that the stem cells, which are normally hidden in your bone marrow because they don't like too much of oxygen, they're able to roam about, do the regeneration, do the healing, and help your body literally heal at a cellular level. I hope that made sense. Let me know if there's any clarification required.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, when we talk about oxygen, we talk about carbon dioxide. There's so many theories out there.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
yeah,
theories out there that say, you shouldn't be oxygen deprived, right? It's
very true. Yeah,
right. So now there's a
yeah,
dichotomy between what you're saying, cutting off oxygen versus
yeah,
increasing oxygen. So I'm going to get you to talk
yeah.
about that, but before you talk about that,
Sure, sure.
you talked about the breathing and the breathing technique of cutting off your oxygen and how that
Hmm.
lets the stem cells roam around. And
Yeah,
stem cells, I mean, people get stem cell transplants these days, right?
yeah, yes,
So are you trying to,
exactly.
so can we tell the audience that they don't need to get stem cell transplants, because if they just do these breathing exercises, their own stem cells will do the activity?
Absolutely. First of all, I'm not a doctor, so
No,
it's best to consult with your doctor about these.
of
The
course.
thing is that, yeah, the doctors are talking about, taking out stem cells, storing it in conditions of low oxygen, so that in the future, when you need it, they can inject it and the healing can take place. But to your audience, yes, you don't need to do that, because these breathing sessions will naturally, without any side effects, help your stem cells proliferate and roam around your body. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it is written that when you hold your breath and use your visualization to focus on a specific point, let's say you got knee pain, you got back pain, you've got wrist pain, hold your attention, hold your breath, and project your intention to that area. The stem cells will go to that region. Now, the ancient yogis did not have the linguistics, the scientific terminologies to explain what happened, but somehow through practice, they were able to say that this indeed does happen. The beauty about today is that we are able to use the research, we are able to use the scientific evidence connected with the ancient practices, and we're able to, without a shadow of a doubt, say this, because there are numerous peer-reviewed journals that are suggesting. In fact, your audience can search about uh, Nishesh Rechak Kumbhaka. This is the technique of pranayama, and you can search for longevity, because there's definitely correlation between Kumbhaka and longevity. And so let's talk about oxygen, if you don't mind.
Sure, please.
Okay. So let's understand from a scientific standpoint in our body, how is energy created, right? So the energy is created basically, the way it works is we take in a breath, we take in the oxygen, and the oxygen has to go to the cellular mitochondria, which is the powerhouse in our body. So the oxygen then mixes with the glucose, and through a beautiful chemical transaction or a chemical process that happens,
Interact.
it releases interaction. It releases ATP, which is the energy, which is then transmitted to wherever it's needed. Releases water vapor, and it releases carbon dioxide, which you then breathe out. Right. Now the thing is, when you breathe in, you get all the oxygen. But in order for the oxygen to leave your red blood cells and go to your mitochondria in your organ, there needs to be certain conditions that need to happen, because there's something called the Bohr's effect, where the oxygen, it sticks to your RBC, it binds to your RBC. Now the way that you can allow this oxygen to eject from the RBC, your red blood cells, and into your mitochondria is when the oxygen level reduces and the carbon dioxide level increases.
Right.
So that's what happens. So what we do in our breath work is that we spend about 5 minutes really flooding our body with some nice oxygen. We take in through the nose, out to the mouth, into the nose, out to the mouth.
Right.
Right? Once we have enough oxygen, then we hold our breath, allowing for the oxygen to get released onto the mitochondria. Because the thing is, like you said, there's definitely a myth that's been propagated which suggests that we need a lot of oxygen. But the truth is that if you look at our SpO2, which is the diluted oxygen in our body, we have a lot of oxygen. In fact, we have around 98% oxygen to 96% oxygen at all times. Too much of oxygen is actually bad for you. So just like when you have iron, too much of oxygen exposure, it leads to rust, right? So if you oxygenate your body too much, you actually risk damaging, it's called oxidation damage. If you keep continuing breathing in that fashion, it could lead to the free radicals attacking your body, leading to chronic illness, immune disorders, and even cancer. Now, this is not me telling you this, but this is the research that is pointing out to that. So too much of oxygen, it's like the yin and yang. You need oxygen, but the carbon dioxide, which has got a bad rep, is also like very important, and you need to balance it from time to time in order for living longer, experiencing stress reduction, and things like that.
So yeah, carbon dioxide does often get a bad rep, and it does often seem like it's something you don't want in excess of. But then, yes, I too, reading ancient texts,
Yeah,
realize that there's inconsistencies between what's said now and what was said back then. Um,
yeah,
I wanted to also ask you then. Uh, I meditate, so over the years when I meditate, my breathing pattern changed naturally as I've been meditating. So,
hmm,
there was times when it was short breaths leading to long
yeah,
breaths. Then it was
yeah,
long breaths, and then it was like staggered breaths and all kinds of things. And
yeah,
even to the point
hmm,
where, I have two breaths, you know.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that, about meditation and how meditation can affect your breathing and why it affects your breathing?
Mm. That's a great question. I mean, based on my own, learning and research, the goal of yoga is to become more efficient in terms of your usage of oxygen.
Right.
So the yogis used to look around in nature and look at the animals, in fact. And if you look at the tortoise, you look at the elephant, their breathing is very slow. Whereas if you look at the mouse, it's like very fast. And so they realized that slow breathing is the way to go. And obviously, the breathing pattern changes from time to time, like you mentioned, and that's, I think, part of the whole meditative experience.
Hmm.
But for the most part, the body does not like erratic breathing, which is like, like breathing determined by your surrounding, and that happens a lot, right? When
Yes.
we're in a stressful situation, we're over oxygenating, hyperventilating the body. But when we're depressed, sometimes we might forget to breathe, right? So the body does not like erratic breathing, because that causes issues for our body, leading to increased cortisol, leading to other disorders as well. But if we are breathing in a rhythm, then that leads to what is called as heart coherence. And in simple terms, your heart is literally smiling and allows your body to relax. It allows your body to unwind, focus on immune building, focus on digestion. And so to your point, and I know you asked me this a while back, what are the different styles of breathing? We can actually adjust our style of breathing depending on what type of physiology we want. So let's say in the morning, we want to get energized, we want to go into that meeting, we need to be really aware, alert. Then we can ensure that we have more, comparatively more oxygen coming into our body, right? So we could do like a fire breathing, where we're ensuring that we've got that nice oxygen in. Our blood vessels are, dilated. Sorry, constricted. Blood pressure slightly increased for a short period of time, so that we're alert, we're aware. Let's say in the evening when we're coming, we want to relax, we want to unwind. We just had our dinner, we want to really let go. That's when we can ensure that we could do something like 2 by 4 ratio. So breathe in for 2 and breathe out for 4. So in 2, out 2, 3, 4, and in 2, out 2, 3, 4. So when we breathe out more than we're breathing in, that stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, that sends a signal to our body that it's okay, there's no saber-tooth tiger around you. You can focus on immune building and digestion, which is so important, right? If we just are able to digest our food properly, everything is taken care of. So one is the breathing style to activate the sympathetic, like I mentioned earlier, especially in the mornings before going to a meeting. Then there's a breathing style to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Or if you want, you can just do equal breaths, like in for 4, out for 4, in for 2, out for 2. And that's just stimulating the heart coherence so that everything, the body knows everything is in balance. You're just normally breathing and everything is all right. So I hope that made sense. And we can talk about another breathing style as well, which is the alternative nostril breathing if you want.
Yes. The Ingala, Ingala, Pingala. Um, so yes, there's very many breathing styles. And so now you're talking about using breathing to your advantage by breathing,
Exactly.
choosing how you breathe um, for getting a certain result versus just breathing unconsciously every day and letting your breathing do the work. So,
Exactly.
what is the effect of becoming conscious in your breathing versus letting the subconscious do the breathing for you? What are the benefits or the pros and cons?
Um, I think breath is life, right? In the Latin word inspirare means in breath, expirare means outside breath, breathing out. When you breathe properly, you get inspiration, you get ideas, you have synchronicities, you have mystical moments, you have magic. When you breathe out too much, expirare, you end up dying. So, in other words, by learning how to consciously control your breath, you are taking control of your life. You're taking control about how you respond to things that are out of your control. You're taking control of how you're, you know, being present in a conversation. You're taking control of your entire body because our breath and our body and our mind, all of them are interrelated. You're taking control of the chemicals that are going to be secreted. Do you want too much of cortisol, or do you want, serotonin, and you want oxytocin? And so all of these things, when you control your breath, you are literally taking control of your life and how people perceive you as well. So, I don't think there's anything more important than being able to consciously breathe and be very effective in your utility of oxygen. Because, like we're discussing today, we don't need too much of oxygen. We need to balance it, oxygen as well as carbon dioxide. And a large part of yoga, if you really think about it, is all about regulating the amount of oxygen,
Right.
which is why you have the ujjayi breathing, right? You're using your throat to ensure that you're not breathing too much of oxygen, but you're really regulating it, and you feel that relaxation response almost immediately.
Right. And so now we're talking about balance. So you want a balance between your in and out breath. Is that right? You don't want too much in or too much out, because too much out is not good and too much in is not good. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, throughout the day, the more we practice, for the most part, we'll be more conscious of our breathing. We'll breathe more slowly, more gently. And of course, once we do the breath work, that's going to be different, where we are, again, consciously, either breathing more in or breathing more out. But one thing also to note is that no matter how we are breathing, we need to take the breath in through the nose, breath out through the mouth. So that's one other thing, because a lot of breathing breathwork styles, they recommend breathe in and out through the mouth. And from what I've learned, that can be problematic as well,
Right.
because the nose is designed in such a way to limit the amount of oxygen intake, right? Because to the mouth we can take in so much more, but to the nose it's limited. We've got these nose hairs that act as filters, so they warm up the air for us. Also, when we breathe in through our nostrils, we are secreting nitric oxide, which has a very relaxing response for our entire body. So, we've been given a nose. Let's ensure that we breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And also, on a separate but very connected subject, so our face has many muscles, it has ligaments, it has bones, and these are actually malleable. They keep moving, just like our teeth. When we breathe in too much through the mouth, our face, in a way, over many years, becomes asymmetrical. So it affects our jaws also.
Second.
But
Just a
if
second.
we breathe through the nose, sure.
Sec.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Sorry about that, my friend.
No worries at all. Um, Let me know whenever I can continue. Yeah. So, what I was sharing was, there are multiple, bones and muscles in our face, and if we breathe too much through the mouth, it really affects our face over a long period of time, and
Right.
affects our jaws as well. But if we breathe in through the nose and ensure that we're not breathing in through the mouth, and if we hold our tongue properly, which is, the subject is called mewing. It's very fascinating, very interesting, and maybe your audience can search about mewing online. But it's basically ensuring that your tongue is positioned properly in your mouth, and the right way to position your tongue is by touching it to the upper palate at all points of time and putting slight pressure on your upper.
Oh, hold on. You've frozen.
Uh, so, uh, so what I was saying was, so the way you breathe can affect your facial structure as well. So, in other words, when you breathe out through your mouth, it affects your jawline. And because there are so many bones and muscles that are literally movable and malleable over a period of time, when you breathe out through your mouth and in through your mouth, it can lead to improper posture and bone alignment. But if you ensure that you breathe in through your nose and out through your nose throughout the day, and ensure that your tongue is placed upwards, touching the upper palate, then that's the best for your oral posture. The subject is called mewing, Mewing, and your audience can learn more about it by just Googling it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're
Hold
welcome.
on again.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
No worries at all.
Okay, so we talked about the tongue, we talked about the face. So are you saying breathing is contributory to how your face structures and looks as well?
It does. That's what I'm finding more of, and I'm
Right,
being more intentional, not in terms of my breathing, but
right,
in terms of how I'm holding my tongue. If you look at from a spiritual standpoint as well, the tongue plays a key role in helping you achieve these high states of, spiritual experience or ecstasy, and that is through the kichari mudra, where you literally take your tongue and you're touching it to the top of your roof, thereby ensuring, especially when you're doing like a microcosmic breathing, when you're pulling the energy up your spine, it goes through your tongue into the third eye. So the tongue plays a key role when it comes to spirituality, and also, like we're finding out, in terms of how you look.
right. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I could keep asking you questions about breathing, but let's tell
Mhm.
everyone about the 888 and what you're going to be doing there, because they can come and experience it themselves. And
Yeah.
we'll get you maybe on a group workshop or something with us so that you can do a workshop with everyone as well. And maybe that's something they might be interested in attending. So tell us about the 888. We can do a part
Yeah.
to this interview at some point to learn more from you and
Sure.
proceed that way
Perfect. Well, firstly, thanks a lot for doing this interview. Really enjoyed connecting with you
as well.
as well. Um, so the 888 experience is is actually going to be my first in-person workshop. Most of the times, I do these sessions on Zoom because through my podcast audience, most of them are in the US or in other parts of the world. So I'm super excited to facilitate these same sessions in person on August 8th. The event is going to start at 8 p.m., but people are encouraged to come at 7:30. So it starts at 7:30 technically, so that we can get the registrations out of the way, and we basically get warmed up. But the experience is going to be a yogic healing breathwork experience. I've designed it in a specific way where the theme for that evening is going to be healing your heart, healing your relationship, manifesting a specific person. Now, what I mean by that is you could call in your soulmate, or you can work on your existing relationship with your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever that might be. And we're going to start with some shaking, some ecstatic dance, so that you sweat it all out, you release all the trauma that might be holding you back, and it's going to be a lot of fun because I've got some music. From that shaking, we're going to move into some beautiful Om incantations where we're going to focus on activating your endocrine system, balancing your chakras. Once that's done, we're going to do some beautiful Ho'oponopono ancient Hawaiian incantations. It's going to be really deep, and I'm going to guide you through this experience of the heart where you're really experiencing forgiveness, gratitude, letting go of any blockages that might be in your heart or throughout your energy body. Once that is done, it's going to be the crescendo, which is going to be the yogic breathwork experience. And what we talked about today, the breath holds and the heart coherence and the breathing in beats, plus some beautiful brain wave music that I've put together so that you're not only breathing, but you're listening to these sounds that will help you get into this altered state of consciousness with ease. And, like I said, I do these sessions and people are able to let go of addictions in terms of having to smoke. People are getting better sleep. People are feeling really blissful for hours or even days after the session. But I won't tell you what to expect. I'll let you be the judge. So if you're in Vancouver, highly recommend that you come. We'll all be there together and we can connect.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your experiences and being available to the 888 people who come and attend this event. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hoping we can do this again soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too. Really excited to connect again. I appreciate this opportunity and looking forward to more.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditya.